Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst, where the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanathan.
And I'm Karuni Karunaratna. Here are tonight's top stories.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Ask for S-Lawn Polygon by name.
Sri Lanka moves to secure energy supply amid Middle East crisis. President tells Parliament.
එතකොට අපි බලන්නේ බොරතෙල් පිරිපහදුවෙන් අපිට අවශ්‍යතාවයන් සපුරා ගන්න බැරි නම් අපි කරන්නේ පිරිපහදු කරන ලද තෙල් ආනයනය කිරීම තමයි අපේ ප්‍රමුඛතාවය බවට පත් කරගන්නේ.
We remain neutral. President says Sri Lanka will champion justice globally. Former US counter-terror official says Iran was months or years away from nuclear weapon. Cricket administration under fire amid national crisis.
Newsfirst headlines. Main sponsor.
Ask for S-Lawn Polygon by name.
On to those stories in detail. Amid the evolving global situation caused by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, President Anurukumara Dissanayake briefed Parliament on measures to ensure an uninterrupted energy supply in Sri Lanka and on matters relating to fuel prices. Addressing Parliament earlier today, the President emphasized that decisions on fuel pricing in Sri Lanka must be taken with careful consideration of the prevailing conditions in the global oil market.
$1 තෙල් මිල වැඩි වුණොත් රුපියල් 2කින් අපේ තෙල් මිල වැඩි වෙනවා.
I will give you a simple formula to understand how fuel prices are calculated. If the global oil price increases by $1, our domestic fuel price increases by 2 rupees. That is the formula. The dollar value has risen from 92.90 to 139, which means an increase of 49 rupees. If we take diesel, the increase is 84 rupees. If you multiply that by 2, you can understand how much the diesel price should increase. Another issue has now emerged. Under our long-term tenders, the premium was 2.5. But what is the premium now? It has gone up to $40. Why? Because suppliers are seeking security guarantees. As a result, oil prices have increased by approximately 6% to as much as 50%. Some countries have increased fuel prices by 6%, while at the maximum, there are countries where prices have risen by 50%. In Sri Lanka, we have increased fuel prices by 8%. The minimum increase is 6%, and that applies to oil-producing countries. If we only had the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, we could manage this by absorbing losses now and profits later. However, 43% of the market is held by the private sector. They say that if the fuel they import now is not sold at the current market price, they will not import fuel. That is reasonable. According to their calculations, they would incur a loss of $55 million per shipment. Fuel prices, therefore, need to be addressed very quickly. But I ask, what would happen if the price gap between the CPC and private companies widened to 100 or 150 rupees? That would be a very large difference per litre. If that happens, private companies will not operate, and people will wait 6 or 7 hours to queue at CPC stations. That is why we are trying to reduce the gap between the two. We also consider the broader economy. I looked at our fuel tax revenue, which is around 20 billion rupees per month. Last year, the total revenue was 240 billion rupees. We are therefore considering whether some relief can be provided through taxes. Some disagree with this approach. Many say that if tax relief is given, those who consume more fuel will benefit more. From the perspective of the International Monetary Fund and our own policy, subsidies should be targeted at specific communities. However, targeting is complex, especially because there is a large informal sector that depends on fuel for livelihoods. How do we identify and target them? It is complicated. That is why we are considering all these factors together. Based on this assessment, we will take the next decision on fuel prices. I believe this decision must be taken very soon.
The President also explained to Parliament the measures taken to ensure an uninterrupted fuel supply in the country.
ෆුජේරා කියන වරායෙන් තමයි අපිට බොරතෙල් ක්‍රූඩ් ඔයිල් ඒමට නියමිත තිබුණේ.
We were scheduled to receive crude oil from the port of Fujairah. In March, on the 24th and 25th, a vessel carrying 90,000 metric tons of crude oil was due to arrive. However, you are aware of what happened to the port of Fujairah. This was a long-term tender and the supplier has postponed it. We also had another single tender for 90,000 metric tons of crude oil, also from Fujairah, and that shipment will not be delivered either. So what did we do? On the 5th, we called for tenders. We awarded a tender for a diesel shipment arriving on the 6th or 7th of April. We awarded a petrol shipment arriving on the 16th or 17th. We awarded a furnace oil shipment arriving on the 12th of April or 13th. We awarded a jet A1 shipment arriving on the 10th or 11th of April. For crude oil, we called one tender for April and another for June. No company came forward to supply crude oil in April. However, one company has agreed to supply a crude oil shipment in June, and we awarded that tender. On the 18th, we also awarded another diesel shipment, which is expected to arrive around the 7th or 8th of April. Discussions are ongoing, and there is an agreement on delivery around that time. If we are unable to meet our needs through crude oil refining, our priority will be to import refined fuel. We also had a private sector shipment of petrol and diesel amounting to 35,000 metric tons scheduled for the 7th or 8th of April, which was postponed. So we look at how to fill these gaps. That is our policy. We called tenders for all 5 fuel types on the 5th of March. Did we not anticipate this crisis? We know that in such global situations, black markets emerge. A single vessel is negotiated among several parties, driving prices up. Our main objective is to ensure an uninterrupted energy supply. That is why we took a second step. Last week, the Cabinet approved a decision to appoint a special committee. Companies can submit proposals to this committee, which operates without political interference and includes relevant state officials. The committee evaluates feasibility, financial value, and whether the shipment can arrive on the required date. Several proposals have already been received and are being studied. Based on this, we believe it is possible to bring a crude oil shipment before the 12th. If everything we have planned works out at the same time, we may even have a temporary surplus, with several vessels waiting at the port and demurrage costs incurred. We are prepared for that. I say this now so that no one later claims that we brought ships and paid demurrage unnecessarily. We are working with that preparedness.
The president also clarified the situation regarding gas supplies.
Our gas supplies currently depends on a single main supplier. Litro holds 80% of the market while a private company holds 20%. Cartels have formed within this supply chain. Political authorities, state officials and black market operators are involved. We are breaking these cartels. When cartels are broken, there is some discomfort. These cartels existed for over 20 years, so some disruption is expected. But if we had not broken them, there would be no gas today. Previously, gas was supplied by only one company. After breaking the cartel, we moved to a new supplier that is not based in the Middle East. That is why our gas supply remains uninterrupted. For March, we require 38,000 metric tons of gas. That amount has already been supplied, though it is currently sorted in a floating facility in the Maldives. Another 33 metric tons are being unloaded today or were unloaded yesterday. A further 33,000 metric tons are scheduled for April. Therefore, even amid this crisis, we are confident that Sri Lanka can continue without a gas shortage for a considerable period.
President Anurukumara Dissanayake says that Sri Lanka will act with neutrality amid the global war-like situation while taking the message of justice and fairness to the international community. The President made these remarks today while addressing Parliament.
First, let me address the issue regarding the Iranian vessels. Specifically, on the 26th of February 2026, we received a request to allow 3 Iranian naval vessels to make a goodwill visit to Sri Lanka on the 9th and the 13th of March. At that time, we were studying the request and considering whether permission should be granted. I wish to clearly state on the very same day, in the afternoon, we received another request, this time from the United States, asking for permission for 2 US Navy fighter aircraft stationed near the Djibouti port to land at the Matala airport in Sri Lanka. What decision did we have to take? We took it very clearly. Our country's position is neutrality. At that point, signs of military conflict were already emerging. Therefore, we did not grant permission to either request. That is neutrality. I clearly remember the question being raised. Why permission was not given to the Iranian vessels? If permission had been granted, what would have happened? Our entire neutrality would have collapsed. Then on the 27th, we were informed that a sailor aboard the Iranian vessel IRIS Bushehr had been injured due to an accident, and a request was made to bring the injured sailor and an accompanying officer to Sri Lanka. Our neutrality and our international obligations require us to provide assistance in such situations. After that, on the 4th, we received reports that an Iranian vessel had been attacked near the boundary of our exclusive economic zone. What was our responsibility? We could have ignored it. It was not within our territorial waters. It was in the exclusive economic zone. Vessels can operate there, and many actions are possible. However, guided by our international obligations and humanitarian considerations, our Navy and Air Force carried out a major operation. There are international standards that apply in such situations. How many days surveillance should be conducted after an explosion, and how far monitoring should extend depending on ocean currents. We followed all these standards strictly. I have seen many people say that action should have been taken within 11 hours. Where did these 11 hours come from? The initial request came on the 26th of February for a visit on the 9th of March. It appears some people do not even understand the difference between days and hours. Secondly, the request concerning the second vessel came only after the first vessel was attacked. That second vessel had suffered an engine failure and could not proceed. A request was made to allow it to come close to the port of Colombo. What does international law say? If a vessel involved in a conflict enters our territorial waters, it becomes a party to the conflict. We can only allow such a vessel to remain for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it must leave. Otherwise, it must be taken into our custody. That is how neutrality is protected. That is exactly what we did. Every decision we made was assessed against our neutral position. Accordingly, we informed them that they could not remain beyond 24 hours and that custody would apply if necessary. Our policy during this international conflict has always been to safeguard neutrality. Recently, a proposal regarding these attacks was presented to the United Nations Security Council. Many countries supported that proposal. We did not. We did not support it because the proposal was incomplete and only partially reflected the truth. I am aware that around 130 countries supported it. We did not. Why? Because it was flawed. Our position has always been to take the message of justice and fairness to the international stage. Diesel issues, food issues, there are many domestic challenges we face, but at a time when the world is at a critical and decisive crossroads shaken by conflict, I urge everyone to speak the truth. What is achieved by making false accusations, creating a narrative that the first vessel was lost due to negligence by the Sri Lankan government is reckless and inhumane. From an international perspective, it is an extremely regressive act. As for other accusations made against me, against our Prime Minister, and in this Parliament, we do not even consider them worth responding to. However, on this issue, I expect all of you to act with greater responsibility.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel and the United States are acting in close coordination to counter Iran, rejecting claims that Israel drew Washington into a conflict. However, former director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center Joe Kent said no intelligence indicated that Iran posed an imminent nuclear threat.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the actions taken by Israel and the United States were aimed not only at protecting their own countries, but also the wider Middle East and the world.
So today Israel and the United States are protecting America, Israel, the entire Middle East, but I venture to say the entire world. Piles of missiles are being hit hard, and so are the industries that produce them. Iran's command and control structure is in utter chaos. And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. In this case, those interests are absolutely clear, and so is the clarity of our achievements. Together in close coordination with President Trump, close coordination between America and Israel, our militaries, our intelligence services, we're achieving goals in lightning speed. But I want to say another word. It's been said that for 40 years, I've been saying that Iran is a danger to Israel and a danger to the world. That is true. You know who else said that? President Trump. 47 years ago, when the Iranian thugs took over the American embassy, he said how dangerous this regime is. In his first term in office, he didn't need any convincing. He said the Iranian nuclear deal was the worst deal that he'd ever seen, and he walked out of it. Right before his second term, before he was reelected, I went to see him in Mar-a-Lago. The first thing he said to me was, "Bibi, we've got to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons." He said that to me. I didn't say it to him. He didn't need any convincing there either.
US President Donald Trump said he has received strong support from Japan on Iran and has no intention of deploying US troops to the region, while defending recent actions against Iran as necessary to ensure global security.
Mr. President, are you fully satisfied with the level of support that you're getting from Japan on Iran, including around the minesweepers?
Well, we're going to be speaking about it today. We're going to be speaking about it today. We've had tremendous support and relationship with Japan on everything, and I believe that based on statements that were given to us yesterday, the day before yesterday, having to do with Japan, they are really stepping up to the plate. Yes, unlike NATO.
Mr. President, do you intend to lift sanctions on Iranian oil, and do you intend to potentially put U.S. troops or more troops in the region?
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you, but I'm not putting troops. And I saw what was happening in Iran, and I said, I hate to make this excursion, but we're going to have to do it. And I actually thought the numbers would be worse. I thought that it would go up more than it did. But we're doing this excursion, and when it's completed, we're going to have a much safer world. And the Prime Minister agrees with me on this. He considers it to be terrible what Iran did. I think every country does, just about every country does. Iran is a serious threat to the world, to the Middle East and to the world. And everybody agrees with me. I think virtually every country agrees with me on that.
Former Director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, said no intelligence indicated that Iran posed an imminent nuclear threat.
President Trump, the chairman, and I stood in solemn silence as heroes came home. Flag-draped caskets, we honored them. We grieved with their families, and we listened. What I heard through tears, through hugs, through strength, and through unbreakable resolve was the same from family after family. They said, finish this. Honor their sacrifice. Do not waver. Do not stop until the job is done. Our commitment. I wear this bracelet. Staff Sergeant Jorge Oliveira, he was one of my sergeants, or one of my specialists in Guantanamo Bay. He deployed later to Afghanistan, where he was killed on 19 October 2011. Killed 10 years after 9/11, just like so many other men and women of our generation and previous generations who wear bracelets like this. Just as we will always remember those lost in this conflict. Their names are now etched into our mission and into the soul of a grateful nation. I stand here today speaking to you.
The Pentagon is seeking an additional $200 billion from Congress to fund the United States-Israel war with Iran, a conflict Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth warns has no time frame for ending.
Imminent threat. Now, the president has said many times to many people, including the public, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. I'm sure he must have said that to you. You don't have to say it, but he said it to everybody. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. They can't have a nuke. Whenever asked, we say, let's just start here. They can't have a nuke. Okay, got it. Everyone agreed with that conceptually. Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't, 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere, but then also we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted. The Iranian strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes. I'll do what you say. I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Sodomized by a bayonet.
Al-Aqsa Mosque compound has closed for Eid prayers for the first time in decades. The compound in Jerusalem will be closed to worshippers for Friday's Eid al-Fitr, the holiday on which Muslims mark the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The full closure of the holy site marks the first since the 1967 Middle East War, when Israel captured East Jerusalem and the Old City. Israel has kept holy sites in the Old City closed to worshippers of all faiths throughout the Iran war, citing security. Though the restrictions have had the broadest effect on Muslims, tens of thousands who normally come for Friday prayer at Al-Aqsa. Iran's new supreme leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei called for the enemies of his nations to have their security taken away, his latest message to the public. Khamenei made the remarks in a statement issued on his behalf to President Masoud Pezeshkian after Israel killed Intelligence Minister Ismail Khatib. Kuwait said its Mina al-Ahmadi oil refinery again came under attack by Iranian drones, which sparked a fire at several of its units. Iranian state television acknowledged the attack Friday without claiming responsibility. Kuwait said firefighters were trying to control the blazes and there were no immediate injuries from the attack.
More than 1,000 people have been killed in intensified Israeli attacks across Lebanon this month, according to local authorities, as the United Nations and other rights groups say Israel's bombardment of the country may amount to war crimes. The Lebanese Ministry of Public Health said on Thursday that Israeli attacks have killed 1,001 people in Lebanon since the 2nd of March, including 79 women, 118 children and 40 healthcare workers. More than 2,584 people have been wounded. Israeli attacks on Lebanon intensified in early March after Lebanese armed group Hezbollah launched rockets into northern Israel in response to the killing of Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei on the 28th of February. The first day of the US-Israeli war on Iran. The Israeli bombardment has forced more than 1 million people out of their homes across the country's south and several parts of the capital, Beirut. Israel's military has bombed residential buildings and other infrastructure and launched a widening ground operation in southern Lebanon in a campaign that it says is targeting Hezbollah. The Lebanese group has responded by firing barrages of rockets into northern Israel and engaging Israeli forces on the ground in the south. Earlier this week, a spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Chief said the Israeli attacks may amount to war crimes.
Protect our cricket.
Juad, cricket is more than just a sport for all the Sri Lankans. It's a brand, and I believe it's like a religion for all the Sri Lankans. And the world used to know Sri Lanka because of a cricket. And we have a very proud history if we go back to the years 1996, I believe.
Absolutely, Budmi. Now let's go back in time. Let's go down memory lane. In fact, now do you remember when Sanat Jayasuriya, Romesh Kaluvitarana turned the cricketing world upside down? And not just that, it was not just the brand of cricket. Even the leadership we had in the team always stood out. Now, you go back to the time during Arjuna Ranatunga. Do you remember that controversy? Exactly, Muthai Muralidharan's bowling controversy, where his action was called illegal, and Arjuna Ranatunga stood by the team, stood by Muralidharan.
And I believe the partnerships and also the centuries, I believe we cannot forget the innings that Aravind De Silva played during those years as well. The knock he had in the semi-final against India in the year 1996 in Eden Gardens, and also the knock, the 100 he had in Pakistan in the year 1996 when Sri Lanka won the World Cup. And I believe, Juad, we remember how we played in the year 2014 as well.
Absolutely.
We remember names Mahalaja Vardhana, Kumar Sangakkara, then Lasith Malinga and Angelo Matthews, who changed Sri Lanka. And those days we used to remember that we used to stop everything to watch a cricket match.
And I must also remind you, Budmin, that on the 17th of this month, we celebrated 30 years since that World Cup we lifted in 1996 when the team was captained by Arjuna Ranatunga. Now, don't forget that Sri Lanka, the people of Sri Lanka live and breathe cricket. But this very cricket is now being destroyed in the country.
And I believe if we go back down the memory lane, we were in the semi-finals in the year 2003. We were in the finals in the year 2007 World Cup. We were in the finals in 2009. We were in the finals in the year 2011. We were in the finals in the year 2012. And also we were in the finals in the year 2014. But after that, we didn't see the Sri Lanka cricket like that in the world, especially in the ICC World Cup tournaments.
Absolutely, Budmin. Now, like I said, over the last decade, Sri Lanka has been living and breathing cricket. We have been enjoying success after success. We have been seeing stellar performances that have been being highlighted in the world cricketing stage. But over the years, like I said, this has been destroyed now. The question is, if you are preparing once again to suppress the real issues by changing coaches, changing the officials that make the decisions for the sport, the people of this country are not ready to accept that.
And if we have forgotten, I believe, let's go back down the memory lane.
This is a reminder of a past incident. Do you remember how Chandika Hatharasinghe was appointed as head coach just to cover up a crisis in cricket? It was revealed during a Committee on Public Enterprises meeting that the contract signed didn't even include an exit clause. In the end, it led to a lawsuit. They even had to go to international arbitration courts to resolve this issue.
අපිට මිලියන් 20ක් විතර ගිහිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ lawyer fees අපේ ඒකට සහභාගී වෙන්නේ රොමේෂ් ටි සිල්වා lawyer තුමයි කුකුරා ඩිසොයිසයි
මිලියන 7.5ක්ම arbitration එකේ cost එක අපේ.
එයාට ගෙවන්න තිබිච්ච වැටුපවාය ගාණක් අපි නඩු ගාස්තු ගෙවන තත්ත්වයකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා.
දැන් අපි මේක in writing ඉල්ලලා දෙන අපිට විගණනය කරගෙන යනකොටයි මේ සහයෝගය ලබා දෙන්නේ.
අපි ඒක අපේ මොකක් හරි අත්වැටදීමකින් වෙන්න ඇති අපි මේක දෙනවා.
Not only that, bringing in Australia's Tom Moody as Sri Lanka's director of cricket was an exercise in futility. We will reveal the figures included in that contract, the facilities provided, and the actual number of days he was required to work on another day. We know that you come into power through the votes of the sports clubs. We are well aware of that. But do not forget that your real cricket contract is with the general public of the country. You surely remember how leaders elected by the people's vote had to go home because they violated the contract they had with the public. Therefore, what we have to tell you is that over the last 12 years, you have utterly failed to fulfill that contract with the people.
Juad, I believe cricket is more than just a game, as we said earlier. And cricket can change the mood of all the Sri Lankans. People love it. People believe in it. But over the past 12 years, we didn't even see Sri Lanka in a World Cup final or a World Cup semi-final.
Yes, Budmi, now over the past few years, all we have seen is change in coaches, change in officials, devaluing our cricket, but we haven't seen the results come up. So do you actually really love the cricket? Because if you truly love our cricket, if you truly love Sri Lanka cricket, at least now the right decisions have to be made.
I believe we have changed coaches, we have changed players, and we have done numerous changes for over the past 10 years. But at the end, we as fans or we as Sri Lankans, we don't see the brand of cricket Sri Lanka used to play. Once we were the 1996 World Cup champions, and once we were the 2014 T20 World Cup champions. But after that, we never saw Sri Lanka being in a semi-final or a final. We urge you to take right decisions, because cricket is more than just a game for the Sri Lankans.
News First with the people.
Move forward, Sri Lanka.
Let's move on to more local news. There is growing discourse regarding an alleged disclosure made by the former CEO of Sri Lankan Airlines, Kapila Chandrasena, stating that 60 million rupees from the $2 million received through the Airbus deal was given to Mahinda Rajapaksa on 3 separate occasions. Now, here are some of the views that were expressed today regarding this matter.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna claims that the disclosure made by Kapila Chandrasena was a statement obtained at the Bribery Commission under duress and threats. The SLPP further says that the suspect has provided an affidavit confirming this.
This is the affidavit provided by this person named Kapila Chandrasena. Under item number 6 of this affidavit, it states, quote, I declare that thereafter the said Mr. Ranga Disanayake addressed me in a threatening tone and said, this is your last chance. 2 or 3 weeks ago, someone just like you came here. You probably know who it was. If you don't, I'll tell you. It was someone from Kehlia's case. I gave him 2 chances. He didn't take them. Before the day his indictment was to be served, he hanged himself. I know who is in your circle and even about your wife. I looked at the official's face. He asked, why didn't you understand? Mentioned Mahinda Namal and then left the room after making that threat. Unquote. A statement made before investigators holds no critical evidentiary value or decisive legal validity. It must be because legal experts of the past assumed that somewhere in the world, investigators who mix personal desires with the law might emerge, that they chose not to incorporate such a principle into the law.
උපකල්පනය කරලා වෙන්න ඇති අතීත නීති විශාරදීන් මේ මූලධර්මය නීතියට අරගෙන නැත්තේ.
This is the response from the Democratic National Alliance regarding the stance of the Podujana Peramuna.
Whether the person involved in this matter is a former president or the president who saved the country, if they have committed a wrong, it is wrong. For that wrongdoing, they must be punished according to the prevailing law of this country. You might remember how former Army Commander Sarath Fonseca came out and spoke very clearly about the efforts made by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa to stop the war while it was ongoing and the deal they struck in that regard. When we see this Airbus deal, it makes us think that these allegations might also be true. We ask now, who came forward to speak against those allegations levelled by Sarath Fonseca? No one spoke up. Now the issue for everyone shouting here is that the director of the Bribery Commission allegedly exerted influence. However, not a single representative, not the former ministers, MPs or anyone from the Podujana Peramuna has come out and said that Mahinda Rajapaksa did not take this money. Everyone you ask says the same thing, that the Bribery Commission director pressured the CEO and obtained the affidavit through influence. But they don't say whether the money was taken or not. Mahinda Rajapaksa famously said, first the motherland, second the motherland, third the motherland. That is how he kissed the earth of this country while plundering the tax money of its people. What we have to say now is that for these people, it's first 20 million, second 20 million and third 20 million. All we have to remind you is that it all adds up to 60 million.
ඔක්කොම මිලියන 60යි කියලා තමයි අපිට මතක් කරලා කියන්න තියෙන්නේ.
The People's Struggle Alliance questions why those who challenge authorities to enforce the law become frightened when the law is actually implemented.
The issue here is that at one point, Namal Rajapaksa and his group ask where are the cases against us, file cases and prove it. But when they are actually summoned for judicial proceedings, they claim they are being hurt or harassed. I think they need to make up their minds and stick to one story. They have clearly been accused of these charges for a long time and the law must be enforced against them. These are nothing compared to the agony they inflicted on the people, the abductions, the arson, the killings, the burning of media institutions and the assassination of journalists on the streets. There is a long history of such actions. Namal Rajapaksa or the Rajapaksa gang cannot say this is too hard for us or this is physically taxing, or claim that we are being forceful. This isn't what force looks like. The people of this country know exactly what was done using white vans. They know how Lalit and Kugan were abducted and how they remain missing to this very day.
Move forward, Sri Lanka.
Sailor Enterprises presents Russell Peters returns to Colombo for the Relaxed World Tour, 31st March 2026 at the all-new Lumina Hall in the City of Dreams, powered by the Australian Migration Consultants. Tickets out now on bookmyshow.com.
Action movie star Chuck Norris passed away at the age of 86.
I'm only 39 years old with 33 years experience.
It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday morning. To the world, he was a martial artist, actor and a symbol of strength. To us, he was a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, an incredible brother and the heart of our family. Norris reportedly fell ill on Thursday in Hawaii. Norris turned 86 this week, marking the event with a video of him boxing on social media and saying, "I don't age, I level up."
From that, we bring to a close this edition of Primetime News on TV1.
Thank you for joining us. Good night.